My parents handed my older brother a white envelope with $60,000 inside and told him it was the down payment for his first house. I remember smiling, congratulating him, and then asking the question that changed the next 2 years of my life. What about me someday? My mother reached across the table, patted my hand, and smiled like she was giving me reassurance instead of a life lesson. You can rent somewhere, honey. You've always been fine. My brother got a house. I got a sentence that quietly explained my entire childhood. So I stopped asking for help. 18 months later, I owned 4 properties, and nobody in my family knew. Then one Sunday, at the same table, under the same tablecloth, they slid another envelope across to me. This time, they weren't giving money. They were asking for mine. Jordan used to think every family worked the same way. Whoever was struggling got the attention. Whoever needed rescuing got the money. Whoever managed to keep everything together quietly became invisible. Her older brother, Kyle, had lived his entire adult life with a safety net waiting beneath him. When he wrecked his first car, their parents replaced it without hesitation. When college didn't work out, they made sure the debt disappeared before it could follow him. Every financial setback became a family project, and every mistake came with another chance. Jordan's life looked completely different. She had worked through college, earned her nursing degree, and spent nearly a decade on night shifts in a pediatric intensive care unit. While most people slept, she was helping frightened families through the longest nights of their lives. The extra overnight pay never became vacations or luxury purchases. It became savings. $500 here, $300 there. Every month another small deposit. Every month another quiet sacrifice. No one in her family ever asked how much she'd managed to save, because they had already decided she didn't need help. She rented a modest apartment, drove an aging Honda that had long since lost its shine, clipped coupons, cooked nearly every meal at home, and quietly built a savings account that eventually reached nearly $50,000. She never mentioned it. Experience had taught her that stability attracted far less attention than crisis. In her family, money flowed toward emergencies. Jordan simply stopped becoming one. Looking back, she realized nobody had ever explained that rule aloud. She had learned it the way children learn invisible family customs. Kyle struggled, so everyone gathered around him. Jordan succeeded, so everyone assumed she would continue succeeding without them. For years, she accepted that arrangement without questioning it. Then came the Sunday dinner that changed everything. The meal itself was ordinary. Pot roast. Family conversation. Kyle spent most of dinner enthusiastically describing a house he wanted to buy, repeating details about the granite countertops so many times that everyone around the table could practically picture them without ever seeing a photograph. Their father listened quietly before reaching inside his jacket and placing a white envelope in front of Kyle. Inside was $60,000. Their parents explained they had taken the money from retirement savings because buying a home had become difficult, and they wanted to give their son a proper start. Kyle looked overwhelmed with gratitude. He hugged both of them across the table while everyone smiled. Jordan smiled too. She truly was happy for him. But as she watched the envelope disappear into Kyle's hands, she couldn't stop doing the math in her head. $60,000 represented years of overnight shifts, countless weekends, birthdays spent working, holidays traded for overtime. She waited patiently. Surely, she thought, the conversation wasn't over. Eventually someone would ask about her plans. Eventually someone would say they wanted to help both children. The moment never came. Finally, Jordan spoke for herself. Softly, carefully. I'm actually thinking about buying a place someday too. Would there ever be any help for my down payment? Silence settled over the table. Her father suddenly became interested in his dinner plate. Her mother reached across the table, patted Jordan's hand gently, and smiled with complete sincerity. Oh, honey, she said. You can rent somewhere. You've always been fine. The words weren't spoken with cruelty. That somehow made them hurt even more. Kyle laughed lightly, not because he meant to mock her, but because nothing about the moment seemed unusual to him. Someone changed the subject back to countertops, and dinner continued as though nothing important had happened. Jordan finished her meal without another word. No argument. No dramatic exit. No tears. Driving home later that night, she realized something inside her had quietly shifted. For years she had believed that if she simply worked hard enough, became responsible enough, and proved herself dependable enough, eventually someone would notice. Instead, responsibility had become the reason everyone overlooked her. Back in her apartment, she sat alone at her kitchen table with a legal pad. Rather than writing down everything she wished she had said, she wrote a single number at the top of the page. Her savings balance. Then she wrote another sentence beneath it. No more waiting for someone else to build my future. That decision changed the direction of her life far more than any $60,000 envelope ever could. After that dinner, Jordan stopped asking for approval and started asking better questions. Instead of replaying her mother's words over and over, she called her credit union and asked what someone with her salary could realistically borrow. The answer wasn't everything she hoped for, but it was enough to begin. That was all she needed. She spent evenings reading books on rental properties, weekends attending local real estate meetings, and lunch breaks studying financing instead of scrolling through her phone. At first, she understood only half of what people discussed. But every month another piece clicked into place. That was where she met Earl. He wasn't impressed by enthusiasm. He was impressed by preparation. When Jordan explained that she wanted to buy a duplex, live in one unit, and rent the other, Earl didn't congratulate her. He simply warned her that everyone loves owning property until a tenant calls at 2 in the morning because a toilet won't flush. Jordan didn't hear discouragement. She heard the price of admission. So she kept showing up, meeting after meeting, question after question. Slowly, Earl stopped seeing another dreamer and started seeing someone willing to do the work. Meanwhile, life at home continued exactly as it always had. Carl hosted family gatherings in his beautiful new house. Their mother proudly showed guests the granite countertops. Relatives asked Jordan when she planned to stop renting, assuming she was still waiting for life to begin. Jordan smiled politely. No one knew she was already negotiating on her first duplex. The building wasn't glamorous. It needed repairs. One unit was occupied, the other needed serious work. Most buyers walked away after reading the inspection report. Jordan saw something different. She saw numbers that worked. She negotiated repairs, reduced the purchase price, secured financing, and signed the papers alone. No celebration. No family dinner. No congratulatory speeches. Just a set of keys resting quietly in her hand. That first summer tested every ounce of her determination. She repaired walls after 12-hour hospital shifts. She learned plumbing by watching instructional videos in the middle of the night. She painted rooms herself, cut grass herself, and tracked every expense in carefully organized binders. When tenants called, she answered. When something broke, she fixed it. Every dollar she saved went back into the property or into the account that would eventually fund the next purchase. The remarkable part wasn't how quickly she grew. It was how completely invisible that growth remained. Sunday after Sunday, Jordan still sat at the family dinner table. Her mother continued asking whether she was happy in her little apartment. Jordan simply answered that she had moved to a place on Ryn Street. Nobody asked another question. Nobody wondered why she suddenly seemed busier. Nobody asked what she had been doing every weekend for months. The family assumed nothing had changed because they had already decided who Jordan was. That assumption became their greatest blind spot. Months later, Jordan bought a second property. Then a third. Each purchase followed the same formula. Study. Save. Calculate. Repair. Rent. Repeat. There were no shortcuts. Only consistency. While Kyle spoke excitedly about weekend seminars and easy passive income, Jordan quietly built a business one spreadsheet at a time. Without realizing it, The family had begun celebrating appearances while overlooking results. Jordan no longer tried to correct them. She simply kept building. This is where many people misunderstand stories like Jordan's. It wasn't one brilliant investment that changed her life. It was dozens of ordinary decisions made consistently. Real wealth rarely arrives all at once. It compounds. Every mortgage payment increased her ownership. Every repair protected the property's value. Every reliable tenant reduced uncertainty. Every dollar saved became the seed for the next opportunity. Meanwhile, the family measured success differently. They celebrated expensive kitchens. Jordan celebrated positive cash flow. They admired appearances. Jordan tracked numbers. Banks don't care who received more attention growing up. They don't reward sympathy or family expectations. They reward documentation, credit history, steady income, and responsible financial decisions. Jordan slowly learned that the financial system had no favorites. It only rewarded consistency. By the time her relatives finally noticed she seemed unusually busy, the real work had already been done. The first duplex had become stable. The second property was producing income. The third purchase was underway. And hanging beside Jordan's back door was a simple wooden key rack. Every new property earned another key. Every key represented a promise she had kept to herself. The remarkable thing was that none of those keys existed because someone believed in her. They existed because, after hearing she would always be fine, Jordan decided to make sure that statement finally became true on her own terms. The family still believed she was simply the quiet daughter who rented. Jordan no longer needed to correct them. Reality was already doing that. 18 months after that Sunday dinner, Jordan's phone started buzzing before she even finished her morning coffee. The first message came from Denise, a nurse she worked with. "Is this you?" Attached was a link to a local newspaper. The headline featured a photo of Jordan standing in front of a renovated duplex with a ring of keys hanging from one hand. The article highlighted young investors who were helping restore neglected neighborhoods. It mentioned that Jordan had quietly built a small portfolio of rental properties, while continuing to work full-time as a pediatric intensive care nurse. She smiled, slightly embarrassed. She had agreed to the interview only because Earl insisted that people needed examples of ordinary investors succeeding through discipline instead of luck. She never imagined anyone in her family would read it. By lunchtime, her mother called. Jordan let it ring once before answering. "Why didn't you tell us?" her mother asked without even saying hello. "There wasn't really anything to announce," Jordan replied. "For properties isn't nothing, Jordan." She looked toward the key rack beside her back door. It didn't happen all at once. There was a long silence. Then her mother quietly said, "Your father wants to talk to you." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, her father cleared his throat. "I'm proud of you." The words should have meant everything. Instead, Jordan realized she no longer needed them as much as she once had. "Thank you," she answered sincerely. That might have been the end of the story. But it wasn't. 3 weeks later, another Sunday dinner invitation arrived. This time the atmosphere felt different the moment Jordan walked through the front door. Nobody talked about granite countertops. Nobody joked about real estate. Kyle barely touched his food. Halfway through dinner, her father slid a folder across the table. Not a white envelope. A folder. Jordan didn't open it immediately. "What is it?" she asked. Kyle finally looked up. "I got behind." He explained that after buying the house, he'd refinanced to pay off credit cards, borrowed against the growing value of the property for renovations, and invested in a business opportunity that never produced the returns he expected. Interest rates had climbed. Payments had become impossible. Now the bank wanted additional security before approving another restructuring. Jordan already knew what was inside the folder before opening it. Co-signing paperwork. Her mother leaned forward. "You're the only one who qualifies." The room became very quiet. Jordan looked at every page carefully before placing the papers back inside. "I can't sign this." Her mother's expression fell instantly. "Jordan, we're family." "I know." Family helps family. Jordan nodded. I agree. Everyone relaxed for half a second. Then she continued. But helping and rescuing aren't always the same thing. No one interrupted. She kept her voice calm. If I sign these papers, nothing changes. Kyle still has the same habits. The debt is just shared instead of solved. Kyle stared at the table. Jordan reached into her bag and placed a notebook beside the folder. Inside were printed budgets, debt worksheets, rental listings, and a step-by-step repayment plan she had prepared after. Reviewing the numbers Kyle mentioned over the phone earlier that week. I'll spend every Saturday helping you organize your finances. She turned another page. I'll help you negotiate with lenders. Another page. I'll help you create a realistic budget. Another. If selling this house becomes the smartest option, I'll help you through that too. Then she gently closed the notebook. But I won't sign away years of careful decisions. So we can pretend this problem doesn't exist. Silence settled over the room. Not angry silence. Thinking silence. Kyle was the first to speak. So, you're saying no? Jordan looked directly at him. I'm saying yes. He frowned. She continued. I'm saying yes to helping you build a better future. She tapped the folder. I'm saying no to borrowing mine. For the first time in years, nobody argued. Nobody accused her of being selfish. Nobody reminded her about family. Because deep down, everyone at the table understood the difference. The months that followed looked nothing like Jordan expected. Kyle made a decision that surprised everyone. He sold the house before the debt became unmanageable. It hurt, but it prevented a much bigger financial disaster. A few weeks later, he asked Jordan whether one of her smaller rental units would become available soon. She treated him exactly as she treated every other applicant. Background check. Income verification. Lease agreement. Security deposit. No special treatment. Kyle accepted every condition without complaint. It was the first time in his adult life that responsibility came before rescue. Their father began stopping by Jordan's properties on weekends. At first, he brought coffee. Later, he brought tools. Eventually, they spent quiet Saturday mornings repairing fences, replacing light fixtures, and talking about everything they had never discussed when Jordan was younger. No dramatic apologies. Just steady effort. It was enough. Her mother changed more slowly. She still struggled with the belief that helping the loudest child was the same as loving both children equally. Sometimes she caught herself slipping into old habits. Sometimes she apologized. Sometimes she didn't. Jordan stopped measuring progress by perfect words. She measured it by consistent actions. One evening, after finishing repairs at her newest property, she returned home and hung another key on the wooden rack beside her door. The final empty hook was gone. She stood there for a moment, looking at all 4 keys. Once, she had imagined showing them to prove something to her family. Now she realized they weren't evidence for anyone else. They were reminders for herself. Each key represented a promise she had kept, a boundary she had honored, and a future she had built without waiting for someone else's permission. The greatest inheritance her parents never gave her wasn't $60,000. It was the determination to build a life that no one could take away.